Members of the committee, I see a quorum. Je constate qu'il y a un quorum.
I see we have quorum. I must inform the members that the clerk of the committee can only receive motions for the election of the chair.
Receive other types of motions, cannot entertain points of order, nor participate in debate. We can now proceed to the election of the chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 1062, the chair must be a member of the official opposition. Je suis prête à recevoir.
I'm ready to receive motions.
Monsieur Greffier, je propose.
Mr. Clerk, I propose Robert Kitchen. Mr. Paulus has proposed Mr. Kitchen as chair of the committee. Are there further motions?
Monsieur Paulus a proposé que Robert Kitchen soit élu président du comité. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion by consensus?
With hesitation.
Seeing no disagreement, I declare Robert Kitchen elected chair of the committee, duly elected chair of the committee, and I invite him to take the chair. Dr. Kitchen, you may open your mic. Thank you.
I just figured out we've got to get used to those buttons again. So thank you, everybody, and thank you for your confidence in me as being the chair. For those who don't know me, I see Joanne and Parm and Gord Johns is here, and Julie Vignola I see is at the table, so good to see you all. And Majid, Irek, and Anthony, although we've never been on committee before, it's just good to see you. So, and Macaulay as well, we have to mention him, so we can't leave him out. So, but I appreciate the confidence, and as we move forward, I was the chair of the committee, for those who don't know, in the last Parliament, in the second session, and we did some great work, and it's thanks to the work we did with our clerk, and our analysts. So thank you to Paul and to Raphael and all the people who did the tremendous work to get that done. So I can't thank you enough. So let me just coordinate things here. What the heck is going on there?
Dr. Kitchen, I've just sent you through email some notes that have been prepared for presumptive chairs. You'll find that document in your email right now. It indicates that if the committee consents, the next order of business would be the election of vice chairs presided over by the clerk. You may wish to ask the committee if it wishes to proceed that way. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, so I'm going to ask, got to get this, sorry, computers, I got to get used to it. Why is that not doing what it's supposed to do? So if the committee is in agreement, I will ask that the clerk proceed with the election of the vice chairs. And I see noddings of heads. So, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Conformément.
Pursuant to Standing Order 1062, the first vice chair must be a member of the government party. I am now prepared to receive motions for the first vice chair.
Yes, Mr. Kosmierczak.
Yes, I just wanted to begin by first congratulating Dr. Kitchen on assuming the position of the chair. We really enjoyed working with you, MP Kitchen, in the last OGGO session, and very much looking forward to working with you moving forward. It gives me great honor to put forward for the position of vice chair, the MP for Richmond Hill, my colleague, Majid Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Kosmierczak. It's been moved by Eric Kosmierczak that Majid Johari be elected the first vice chair of the committee. Are there any further motions? Mr. Kosmierczak has proposed Mr. Johari as first vice chair of the committee. Is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the motion by consensus? Seeing consensus, I declare Mr. Johari duly elected first vice chair of the committee. Congratulations, Mr. Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to my colleague, Mr. Kuzmirchak. Congratulations, Dr. Kitchen, and it's good to be in this committee.
Conformément à l'article 106.
Pursuant to Standing Order 106.2, the second vice chair must be a member of the opposition, but not a member of the official opposition. I am now ready to receive motions for the second vice chair.
Oui, Monsieur Le Greffier.
Yes, thank you, Clerk. I would like to nominate Julie Vignola for the second vice chair position. Thank you, Mr. Housefather. It has been moved by Mr. Housefather that Julie Vignola be elected second vice chair of the committee. Are there any other motions? Mr. Housefather has moved that Ms. Vignola be second vice chair of the committee. Are we ready to adopt that with consensus? I see there is a consensus. I declare Ms. Vignola elected second vice chair of the committee. Congratulations, Ms. Vignola. Thank you very much, honourable colleagues, for once again trusting me with this honour.
Meeting back over to you, Dr. Kitchen.
All right. So thank you for that, and congratulations to Mr. Johari and Ms. Vignola as vice chairs. I look forward to working with you as we move forward with our agenda. So with that, I would like to call the meeting to order. And you did hear that bang of my gavel, right? Good. I'll have to get a little louder with that one. So welcome to the meeting of the number one of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations Estimates. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. Regarding the speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain a consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether participating virtually or in person. I'd like to take this opportunity to remind all participants to this meeting that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from public health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, the following is recommended for all those attending the meeting in person. Anyone with symptoms should participate by Zoom and not attend the meeting in person. Everyone must maintain 2-meter physical distancing, whether seated or standing. Everyone must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room. It is recommended in the strongest possible terms that the members wear their masks at all times, including when seated. Non-medical masks, which provide better clarity over cloth masks, are available in the room. Everyone present must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the hand sanitizer at the room entrance. Committee rooms are cleaned before and after each meeting. To maintain this, everyone is encouraged to clear surfaces such as the desk, chair, and microphone with the provided disinfectant wipes when vacating or taking a seat. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank members in attendance for their cooperation. Okay, I would now suggest that as the next order of business, that the committee now proceed to consideration of our routine motions. In preparation for this, the committee clerk has circulated the list of routine motions that the committee adopted in the last parliamentary session. Committee clerk can also answer any questions about the routine motions that you may have. Ms. Clerk?
I believe, Mr. Chair, Mr. Kuzmirchak has raised his hand.
Okay, Mr. Kuzmirchak.
Mr. Chair, if it's the will of this committee, I can read the routine motions into the record.
Certainly. Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to put forward the following routine motions. I will read them out from start to finish, and then we can, again, if it's the will of the chair and the committee, we can maybe discuss each individual after that. Analyst services. That the committee retain as needed and at the discretion of the chair, the services of one or more analysts from the Library of Parliament to assist in its work. Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure. That the Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure be established and be composed of 5 members.
Sorry,
The chair.
point of order.
Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest that once one of them is read out, we just see if there's any discussion and then vote on one and then move to the next one only at that point instead of reading them all out and coming back to them one by one? I think once he's read one out, we should stop and vote on that one and then he move to the next one. Anyways, that's the way I've always seen it done.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, let's deal with them one at a time then. I think that will be good. Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczak. Is there any discussion on this motion? And as I look around the room, I'm not seeing any hands up. Therefore, is the committee acceptable to this motion? Hands up. Yes, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kazmierczak.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure, that the Subcommittee on Agenda and Procedure be established and be composed of 5 members, the chair, 1 member from each recognized party, and that the subcommittee work in a spirit of collaboration.
Thank you, Ms. Kazmierczak. Is there any discussion on this motion? And as I do not see any, therefore, everyone's in favor? Hands up. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Meeting without a quorum, that the chair be authorized to hold meetings to receive evidence and to have the evidence published when a quorum is not present, provided that at least 4 members are present, including 2 members of the opposition parties and 2 members of the government party. But when traveling outside the parliamentary precinct, that the meeting begin after 15 minutes, regardless of members present.
Thank you. Any discussion on this motion? And not seeing any, I call for everyone in favor. Hands up, thank you.
Time for opening remarks and questioning of witnesses, that witnesses be given 5 minutes for their opening statement, that whenever possible, witnesses provide the committee with their opening statement 72 hours in advance, that at the discretion of the chair during the questioning of witnesses, there be allocated 6 minutes for the first questioner of each party as follows for the first round. Conservative Party, Liberal Party, Bloc Québécois, New Democratic Party. For the second and subsequent rounds, the order and time for questioning be as follows. Conservative Party, 5 minutes, Liberal Party, 5 minutes, Bloc Québécois, 2.5 minutes, New Democratic Party, 2.5 minutes, Conservative Party, 5 minutes, Liberal Party, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczak. Any discussion on this motion? And I'm not seeing any hands up, and therefore is all in favor? Thumbs up, hands up. Yes, I see it carried.
Document distribution, that only the clerk of the committee be authorized to distribute documents to members of the committee, provided the documents are in both official languages and that the witnesses be advised accordingly.
Thank you, Ms. Kazmierczak. Any discussion? And I'm not seeing, sorry, Mr. Jahari, no, okay, you were a step ahead of me. Yeah, all in favor? Yeah, I see hands carried, thank you. Thank you.
I'd like us to really bear down on this next one. It's the critical one, working meals. That the clerk of the committee at the that the clerk of the committee at the discretion of the chair be authorized to make the necessary arrangements to provide working meals for the committee and its subcommittees.
And any discussion? And not seeing any. I know in the last Parliament we worked around that. Basically, the clerk did a very diligent job in asking whether people would be there to cover when we were in person. So I appreciate that. All in favor? Thank you.
Travel accommodation and living expenses of witnesses, that if requested, reasonable travel accommodation and living expenses be reimbursed to witnesses not exceeding 2 representatives per organization, and that in exceptional circumstances, payment for more representatives be made at the discretion of the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. Any discussion? And I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Carried.
Access to in-camera meetings. That unless otherwise ordered, each committee member be allowed to be accompanied by 1 staff member at in-camera meetings, and that 1 additional person from each House officer's office be allowed to be present.
Thank you. Any discussion? And I'm not seeing any. All in favor? Carried.
Transcripts of in-camera meetings. That 1 copy of the transcript of each in-camera meeting be kept in the committee clerk's office for consultation by members of the committee or by their staff, and that the analysts assigned to the committee also have access to the in-camera transcripts.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. Any discussion? And I'm looking around the room. I do not see any hands up. All in favor? Carried.
Notice of motion, that a 48-hour notice, interpreted as 2 nights, be required for any substantive motion to be moved in committee, unless the substantive motion relates directly to business then under consideration, provided that A, the notice be filed with the clerk of the committee no later than 4 p.m. from Monday to Friday. B, the motion be distributed to members and the offices of the whips of each recognized party in both official languages by the clerk on the same day the said notice was transmitted, if it was received no later than the deadline hour. C, notices received after the deadline hour or on non-business days be deemed to have been received during the next business day, and that when the committee is holding meetings outside the parliamentary precinct, no substantive motion may be moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. Any discussion? I'm just giving everyone a little extra time that was a longer motion, just to make sure they were comfortable with it. I'm not seeing any hands up. Okay, all in favor? Carried.
Orders of reference from the House respecting bills, that in relation to orders of reference from the House respecting bills, A, the clerk of the committee shall, upon the committee receiving such an order of reference, write to each member who is not a member of a caucus represented on the committee to invite those members to file with the clerk of the committee in both official languages any amendments to the bill, which is the subject of the said order, which they would suggest that the committee consider. B, suggested amendments filed pursuant to paragraph A at least 48 hours prior to the start of clause-by-clause consideration of the bill to which the amendments relate shall be deemed to be proposed during the said consideration, provided that the committee may, by motion, vary this deadline in respect of a given bill. And C, during the clause-by-clause consideration of a bill, the chair shall allow a member who filed suggested amendments pursuant to paragraph A an opportunity to make brief representations in support of them.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. Again, another longer motion. Just looking around, make certain everyone is comfortable. Any discussion? And not seeing any hands up. All in favor? Carried.
Technical tests for witnesses, that the clerk inform each witness who is to appear before the committee that the House Administration support team must conduct technical tests to check the connectivity and the equipment used to ensure the best possible sound quality, and that the chair advise the committee at the start of each meeting of any witness who did not perform the required technical tests.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. And any discussion? And I'm not seeing any hands up. All in favor? Carried.
linguistic review, that all documents submitted for committee business that do not come from a federal department, members' offices, or that have not been translated by the Translation Bureau be sent for prior linguistic review by the Translation Bureau before being distributed to members.
Thank you, Ms. Kuzmierczak. And any discussion? And not seeing any. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Kuzmierczak, in helping us get through those routine motions, and greatly appreciated. Okay, thank you. So now we are committee formed and structured and have some goals, and I would now look to see if there are any motions put forward by any members for us to consider to study.
Mr. Chair?
Mr.
Chair,
yes.
I believe Mr. Johns would like to intervene.
Okay, Mr. Johns?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we've circulated in both official languages a motion around committee business and rules around meeting in camera, and it's that the committee may meet in camera only for the following purposes: A, to consider a draft report; B, to attend briefings concerning national security; C, to consider lists of witnesses; and D, for any other reason with the unanimous consent of the committee, and that all votes taken in camera, with the exception of votes regarding the consideration of draft reports, be recorded in the minutes of proceedings, including how each member voted when recorded votes are requested. And we know that this is set, but we want to remove that any motion to sit in camera is debatable and amendable.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johns. Okay, so any discussion on this motion? Mr. Housefather, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention that on other committees, the chair has ruled this motion not receivable as being contrary to House rules, that a majority vote of the committee determines whether or not something is in camera or not. And this would impose unanimity, meaning that as opposed to the ordinary rules where a majority of the committee could send something to in camera, this motion would require unanimity, meaning that one member of the committee could prevent the majority of the committee from sending something into camera. And I have difficulty with that part. I think personally that the majority of the committee is what should determine whether something goes in camera or not. We could set general rules related to in-camera meetings, but the majority of the committee should always be able to determine that it wishes to go into camera. And this list, which I haven't really had a chance to study, may not be an exhaustive list of the reasons we may want to go into camera for one reason or another. And I don't believe one member of the committee should have the right to block everyone else on the committee from determining something should be in camera. So for that reason, Mr. Chair, I think it's both non-receivable, but if it is receivable in your view, Mr. Chair, I would vote against this motion. Although I can appreciate that we should only be in camera very sparingly, and if it was something different, I might support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. And I'm just looking around the room, and I see Mr. Johns, your hand is up again.
Thank you, Mr. Kitchen. It can't be that easy doing it from where you are, so I appreciate you seeing us. So the rationale here in terms of moving in camera can sometimes, there's been times in previous parliaments where the government has tried to move committee meetings in camera to force difficult issues and votes behind closed doors and to avoid public scrutiny. And even in minority parliaments where the government can't act unilaterally, there's been times where this has been attempted. And as a consequence, valuable committee times ended up being wasted in debating this. So for that reason, there is value to set out parameters at the front end and in routine proceedings that specify when in-camera meetings can take place. And otherwise, we may be in situations where the work of the committee can be wasted in debating frivolous attempts to move in camera. That's the rationale on it. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Mr. Kuzmierczak, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as someone that was on this committee in the previous session, I can tell you that that meetings in camera were used sparingly and judiciously. They provided this committee with the flexibility to discuss sensitive matters and issues behind in camera, and so I cannot support this motion. It also again allows us to also listen to testimony that may be very sensitive as well too, and so that is something that allows our committee that flexibility. And so I believe that I can't support this particular motion because I think it would hamstring our committee unnecessarily. And again, in previous sessions, the in-camera was used sparingly and judiciously. I would put forward.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. And before I go to Mr. Johari, I just want to thank everybody who is doing it virtually for hitting the raise hand button, because it actually is allowing me to see the hand come up, and I appreciate that. So I can, I have just one little picture of the room, which is great. It's focused on the one side where everyone is at. So I appreciate it. Mr. Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and once again, congratulations. Mr. Chair, the argument presented by my colleague, Mr. Gord Johns, it's not really relevant to this committee. This committee, the government is not in a majority position, so it will never be able to use its majority as a point to be able to move a committee into in camera. So, and I'll be opposing it when it comes to voting.
Thank you, Mr. Hari. So with that said, we've now sort of had a discussion on the issue. I will entertain a vote on this. And so I will ask for Mr. Johns, if you have any, as you're the person who put forward the motion, I would give you one last chance to have a word before I call for the vote.
We can just vote on it, Mr. Kitchen. That's fine.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm sorry to intervene, but the House order adopted on December the 2nd and November 23rd indicate that if there's any disagreement or if there's no consensus, the decision has to be taken in committee by a recorded division. You may want to seek if there's consensus on the motion, and if not, I can do a recorded division.
Okay. Yes. Is there consensus on the motion? And I'm not seeing that. So
can I do the recorded division?
Yes, please, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The question is on the motion moved in by Gord Johns. Mr. Housefather.
No.
Mr. Bain.
No.
Mr. Johari.
Oppose.
Mr. Kazmierczuk.
Oppose.
Mrs. Thompson. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thompson, you were muted. I couldn't hear you. I'm still not hearing you for some reason. I apologize. Are you wearing a headset?
Yeah, I just turned it off. Opposed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Loeb.
Opposed?
Mr. McCauley.
Opposed.
Monsieur Paul Huss.
No.
Madame Vignola.
No.
Mr. Johns.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, that is nays contre 9, yeas pour 1.
Therefore, it's defeated. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Johns, you also had a second motion, if you'd like to entertain that.
We are not going to move the second motion. Thank you, Mr. Kitchen. We believe that we're going to work collegially here, and I'm confident with the team here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Okay. I see Ms. Vignola, you have your hand up.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a motion for debate and hopefully we can write a letter to the Speaker of the House on this. I will read it, and you should all have received a copy. I distributed paper copies in the room. That in light of the Prime Minister's call to the country's businesses to produce personal protective equipment, and that since then several Quebec and Canadian businesses have responded, the committee deplores the fact that masks distributed on Parliament Hill and in various federal departments and agencies come from abroad and not from local businesses. That the administration of the House and the federal government take steps to ensure that, as of January 31st, 2022, the masks distributed on Parliament Hill and in the various federal departments and agencies come from Quebec and or Canadian companies that produce this type of personal protective equipment, also called PPE.
Vignola. And I'm seeing Mr. Johari's hand to discussion. Mr. Johari.
Mr. Chair, is it possible for the text in both languages be circulated via email as well? I appreciate the fact that it was circulated in the committee room. However, all our members are attending virtually, and we would appreciate if we receive this electronically as well. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Hari. And my understanding is that the clerk is arranging for that to be circulated as we speak. So it will be sent out ASAP. And hopefully everyone will have received that.
Mr. Chair, I can say we have sent them out. We've received 5 notices of motion from Madame Vignola. We've sent all 5 out, anticipating that if she wants to move any of the 5 of them, the text will be distributed to all members of the committee. So it should be going out in a few seconds. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any, is there anyone in the room that wishes to discuss it, the motion? Sorry, Mr. Kuzmirchuk, is your hand up again, or is that?
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if we can suspend for a couple minutes for us to be able to review the motions that were brought forward. I had not been able to see those until right now.
Mr. Kuzmirchuk, I think that's a great idea. So let's just suspend for, let's say 5 minutes, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes so people can have a look at that. Looked at this, and although it does appear to be a little bit outside of the order of the House, and it's non-binding, although I think we will entertain some discussion on it. And I see that Mr. Housefather, your hand is up. So, Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. J'apprécie.
And I appreciate the comments from my colleague, Ms. Vignola. First of all, I appreciate that the other motions will be notices of motions, because I really think that when we're talking about what the committee should study, even though I generally agree with the four proposed studies that we should all have a deadline in January to submit our motions and to have a good discussion once all the members of the committee have looked at all committees' motions. So I would appreciate that that would be the way that we would work going forward.
This specific proposal, Mr. Chair, while I would have preferred to have more of a chance to study what contracts are currently in place with suppliers, as we all remember last March when this issue happened, we were desperate to procure whatever protective equipment we could, and we entered into agreements with whoever was then available to supply the protective equipment. I don't know the duration of the term of those contracts. I don't know the scope of those contracts. I don't know how much stock we have in place right now in the House of Commons, meaning that what if we have stock that lasts us through next July? Does it mean that we have to throw out all of the things that have been purchased from other suppliers already in order to transition by January the 31st? And I don't think the committee has knowledge of what contracts are in place in order to adopt this motion saying that by January the 31st, we're only going to use things that are coming from Canadian businesses. So at the very, I would invite my colleagues to consider using this as a notice of motion as well, and considering this at our first meeting back, because I just don't have the knowledge. But if we do want to consider it now, there's two things that I think we would really need to amend. The first thing we would need to amend is the date, because it would definitely during the holidays and without knowing the scope of the contracts be possible to do this by January 31st of next year. I would suggest that we would want to say as soon as contractually possible. So basically we would respect the scope of whatever contracts exist, and then say as soon as contractually possible, as soon as reasonably possible, something like that. And Mr. Chairman, the other thing that I would say about the way the motion is worded that I really would suggest has to be changed is the way it makes it seem like Quebec is outside of Canada, the way we're saying Quebec businesses and Canadian businesses, as if Quebec businesses are not Canadian businesses. I think we could easily say Canadian businesses, including those from the province of Quebec, or Canadian businesses, including Quebec businesses, but not make it seem like these are two different countries already with two different businesses. Those are my main comments. But again, I would invite my colleagues to consider whether or not it's possible to defer this so we can come back at the first meeting with knowledge of the contracts that exist and what supply the House of Commons currently has, and then determine what is realistic. I'll come back on this, Mr. Chairman, if people wish to move forward today and amendments are required, and then I'll propose actual amendments. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. And I am, just to be clarify, you're not making the amendment now. You're proposing that should it trend as we go on, that you might make that amendment at a later date. Is that correct? I see you're nodding your head. Thank you.
That is correct. If people wish to proceed with debate on this today, then I will come back with amendments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So I have Mr. McCauley, then Mr. Paul Hoos, and then we'll go to Mr. Kazmirchuk and then Mr. Johari. So Mr. McCauley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and congratulations on your appointment again. And wonderful to see that you've lost some weight as well. Well done. I agree with Mr. Housefather's comment about the Quebec thing. Obviously, Quebec is part of Canada, a great part, but the motion should read from Canada. Apart from that, I personally do support this motion. We've spent, hundreds of millions sole sourcing contracts to Medicom, You know, obviously there are masks that the government has paid for these masks and have been, you know, they've been made for, I think, over a year now produced. So they are in the government system somewhere. Surely these ones should be used in the House and in Department of Government departments rather than Chinese-made ones. So I do support the motion, just with the amendment to say Canada. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Mr. Paul Hughes.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I also support the motion. And also, as we saw in the media this week, there's an urgent situation for public health because the masks here in the House of Commons are falsely identified as being approved by the FDA of the United States. This is an approval that had taken place, but which was taken away. So we're not really sure what we're putting on our face when we put these masks on. So we don't know if they're good for public health or not. Whereas here in Canada, we have excellent masks made by Canadian businesses. And so I think that doesn't matter how many masks we already have for the House of Commons and for the Government of Canada. I think that these masks should be taken out, given that the FDA has found that they are not good for health. And I would be ready to pass the motion with the amendment proposed by my colleague, because we are all in Canada. But I would also add a little word that would be missing at the end of the motion in terms of to whom the motion is addressed. And so what I would add is that the chair send a letter to the House of Commons and request that measures be taken before the end of the deadline imposed in the motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Paul Hughes. And just again, are you making that as an amendment at this point in time, or in as we discuss further?
Si vous faites l'amendement maintenant,
Are you moving the motion? Yes, I move that we make that amendment. So I would include that we remove the mention of Quebec and that we add the sentence that I suggested at the end.
may I ask a question of Mr. Paul Hughes regarding his amendment?
Yes, please. And yeah, I'm going to ask if the clerk could clarify that, and then for all members so that we know exactly how it's read.
Monsieur Paul Hughes, juste au bout
Mr. Paulus, I received the text of the amendment that you wish to add to the motion, so that will soon be distributed to everyone on the committee. But I just want to clarify the amendment concerning Quebec and Canadian businesses. Does that mean that you would like to remove the words Quebec and? And so it would then read several Canadian businesses? Yes, that is it.
the opportunity to clarify this. We will send the amendment out in a few moments. You can entertain debate on the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. So just waiting for that amendment. Mr. Kazmierczuk, I see your hand is up, but I expect you're wanting to talk about the motion, not necessarily the amendment at this point in time. So I will just hold off on that. And likewise for Mr. Har. Oh, I see your hands down, Mr. Hari. So we will wait till we get that amendment distributed. Just hold on with everyone, please.
Mr. Chair, the amendment has been distributed to the members. You may continue with the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll give people just a minute to read that. And perhaps, Mr. Paul Hoos, could you just clarify where you would like that put in the motion, just so that we know exactly where it sits?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that the text Mr. Paul Hoos would be adding on, that was distributed, will be added on at the end of the motion. Est-ce que c'est correct, Mr. Paul Hoos? Oui. Thank you.
Oui, absolument.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read the amendment that's being proposed. So we will have discussion on the amendment at this point in time. Mr. Kazmierczuk?
I apologize. I have a comment on the motion, not the amendment. Apologies.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Housefather, I think your hand was, you just raised your hand, is that correct? You're on mute.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to have a slightly more time to read it. It just arrived in my inbox.
Okay, we'll give you a minute or two then, okay? We'll just hold off everyone for a bit. Okay, how are we doing there, Mr. Housefathers? You're good?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and just for my own clarification too, Mr. Paul Hughes, in your discussion, also you were talking about in the amendment the change from come from Canadian companies and Quebec. Was that correct? Is that just changing that wording? Just want to be clear that this was part of your amendment as well.
Mr. Chair, if I may, as I clarified with Mr. Paul Hughes, and I had an opportunity to confer with him, he suggests removing in the motion, just pull out the English text, to remove the words Quebec and or before the word Canadian. So it would read as come from Canadian companies. The same change would be in the French. And then he's proposing as well to add the text that was distributed to the members of the committee a few moments ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And so just again, I wanted that clarification so everyone understands that. Everyone hopefully heard that part, that the would remove Quebec and or, and it would say from Canadian companies, and then the added part that you've all received. With that said, Mr. Housefather, I see your hand is up.
Je voudrais savoir.
I would like to inquire, just to have consensus at the committee, perhaps we could say Canadian companies, including Quebec companies, so that Quebec is mentioned, but so that it's clear that Quebec companies are indeed Canadian companies. So it would be Canadian, including those from Quebec. I think that that might be more within the spirit of what Ms. Vignola was proposing. I thought perhaps we could reach consensus in that way. I would ask Mr. Paul Huss exactly what he would propose. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Paul Hoos, just before I see Ms. Vignola's hand is up, and but just Mr. Paul Hoos, if you just want to, is that what you're comfortable with what Mr. Housefather has said? Consensus on that?
Attendez, Monsieur le greffier, je pense qu'il veut.
Just one moment. I believe the clerk is looking to talk to you.
Sorry. Or does this have to be a sub-amendment?
Well, that's effectively what I was asking, if Mr. Housefather was effectively moving a sub-amendment, and if I could get the text of what he plans to move, or if he is asking that for unanimous consent for Mr. Paul Huss to amend his original amendment. I just want to know what Mr. Housefather...
I was not proposing a sub-amendment. I was suggesting to Mr. Paul Huss that that wording may be preferable to Madame Vignola, and we may have a consensus on it if he used it. But I am totally up to him how he words the amendment. Thank you.
Si je peux, Monsieur le Président.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I have no issue. Of course, Quebec companies that make masks will be happy to have them in Ottawa if they have some for us, or wherever they're from in Canada. The main issue is to get rid of the foreign masks we have right now.
Just get the text of what you had suggested. It went by a little fast for me, and I do apologize for that. What were you suggesting?
I was suggesting we say Canadian companies, including those from Quebec, les compagnies canadiennes, y inclus celles du Québec.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So we sort of have consensus on that wording. And so in discussion of the amendment with that wording and the addition from Mr. Paul Huss, and I see Ms. Vignola, your hand is up. Sorry for the delay.
So just briefly, I do understand my colleagues' point of view when they say that Quebec is part of Canada, of course. Until demonstration of the contrary, we are, of course, part of Canada. It was important for us to say Quebec and Canada, and now I'm just explaining. I'm not opposing. I just wanted to clarify, but as we are a nation, we simply want it to be properly represented in decision-making. That's all. So because Quebec is a nation, that's why we wrote things the way they are. Now, Mr. Housefather's proposal is acceptable to me. Saying Canadian companies, including Quebec companies, that's perfectly fine. I just wanted to explain where it came from. That is why we worded things in that particular way, why we said Quebec and Canada in our motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vignola. Mr. Housefather, just so you're aware, you're not muted. So just to clarify for you, in case you sneeze or something. We have Mr. Macaulay.
I'm fine. Let's just move on. I mean, this is getting silly.
Thank you, Mr. Macaulay. Mr. Lobb.
Thanks very much. Nice to see you, Mr. Chair. The only thing I'll say is I'm new to this committee. I'm glad to be here. But I just say Madame Vignola made her motion. It was my understanding that they were going to take out Quebec and it was just going to be Canada. Mr. Housefather then inserts Quebec back into the equation, okay, which makes no sense to me at all, no offense to him. And I don't know why we just wouldn't leave it as it is, because if we're going down this road, I'm from Ontario, I'd like that in there. And I know Mr. Macaulay's from Alberta, and I know he'd like that in there. And I know Mr. Kitchen's from Saskatchewan, and maybe he'd like that in there. So, I mean, let's leave the ridiculousness out of this to start out with this committee. We had an agreement. Let's just deal with it, leave it as Canada, and focus on what the issue is to get rid of the Chinese masks. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lobb. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Not seeing any. Mr. Clerk, could you read the amendment as you see it, and then we can vote on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My understanding of the amendment as it stands right now is that Mr. Paltis has proposed that the motion be amended by replacing, that the motion be amended by replacing the words, we're removing the words Quebec and or before the word Canadian and replacing it with Canadian including those of Quebec. So Canadian companies including those of Quebec that produce this type of protective equipment, and also to add the following text to the motion, which I will read. I'm just looking for it now. Do you have it? I'm just looking for the text of the amendment. One moment, please. I've got quite a few emails open at the moment. Do you have it? Ah, yes, thank you. Okay, and that be added to the end of the motion that the chair of the committee write to the Speaker of the House to inform him of the situation and asks that measures be taken to resolve the situation before the date specified in the motion. And in French, it would be adding et que le président.
And in French, the text would be that the chair write a letter to the Speaker of the House to inform him of the situation and ask that measures be taken before the date mentioned in the motion.
Right now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. That is the motion that or the amended motion we have in front of us right now. And do we have consensus on this amended motion? And I'm assuming that we do. Therefore, we now will discuss the motion as amended. And now we have Mr. Johari. I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to bring up a couple of points vis-a-vis this motion, and the reason that I support my colleague, Mr. Hausfather, asking for more time for us to be able to get some facts and data. Number one, I think we really need to understand from a vis-a-vis the inventory of where we are, and the efficacy of this inventory also needs to be looked at. So as my colleague, Mr. Paul Hughes, indicated, it would be good to also understand, given the new variant, are these inventory effective? So if we are in a position to be able to replace these, then our hands is, we're doing it in a very knowledgeable way. That's number one. Number two, when we go that exclusive that it will be all be produced by Canadian manufacturer, I don't know what the impact on the World Trade Organization is going to be. Are we doing something that we're going to go against some of the free trade agreements that we have signed? Are we going to be in a position that we may have some sort of litigation? And also the fact that we say Canadian companies, a lot of Canadian companies bring parts from all over the world, and then they manufacture here or they assemble here. So the fact that the company is a Canadian company or a company in Quebec, which is Canadian, does not necessarily mean that they manufacture from A to Z in Canada and it's 100% Canadian product. I mean, I'll draw my colleagues' attention to our automotive industry and the fact that not all the parts are manufactured in Canada. And I also draw our colleagues' attention to the challenge that we have with the EV situation that we are facing and down south, and there some of the incentives that they're coming or being proposed by our American colleagues. So please consider those three as an input that we need to consider, and my support for the fact that we really need some time to be able to study this and make sure that we have all the facts. I would suggest that we conclude by looking at the facts that we need to be provided to us, and reach out to PSPC and get some information from them, so we can have a lot more substantive conversation around this, because I think this is an important point for us to consider, or study for us to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Johari. Mr. Kazmierczuk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, but I'd like to actually yield the opportunity to speak next to my colleague, MP Housefather, if that's possible, and happy to stick around for some additional comments after that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Chair, I've circulated further amendments that I've sent in a red line in the English version, and I've translated into French, but I haven't redlined it, but the French translation is contained in the document that I've emailed to the clerk and the committee, and everybody can check their email. I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you would like me to read my amendment into the record now and then let the committee look at it, but I yield to you as to what process you'd like.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. So yeah, I think if you would read your amendments, then that hopefully gives people time to find what you've sent to them. I'm assuming this is an amendment that you're proposing now to the amended motion.
Yes, sir.
If go ahead and if you would read your amendments, and that hopefully will give people time to draw up what you've sent them, and they can have a look at it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the third line of the first paragraph, I would propose to change the word "the committee deplores" to the committee is concerned. The fact that the masks, so basically change the word deplores to is concerned. To change in the second line of the second paragraph, the date of January 31st, 2022 to as soon as reasonably possible. And after the words Canadian companies, including those from Quebec, or however we amended the motion properly in the first go around, in the second of last line of the second paragraph, to say to the words, to the extent possible, respecting all WTO rules. And Mr. Chairman, I'll give you the reasons for the amendment. The word deplores, I think, is far too strong, given the fact, again, that these may well have been sourced at a time in the pandemic when we were desperate to get PPE from anywhere, and the Canadian companies had not commenced operations. So I don't think it is fair to say that we deplore something. I think we could say we're concerned that there are masks distributed that are not from Canadian businesses. I don't think January 31st, 2022 is a reasonable date, given the holidays are coming up. Nobody on this committee knows the terms of the contracts involved. And as well, we also don't know how much stock we have that we've already purchased, and we don't want to waste existing stock. So I think putting as soon as reasonably possible is a good compromise. And finally, we can say we want them to come from Canadian companies, as much as we want, but we have to respect all WTO rules and rules of agreements that we are part of. And we can't just say it actually is in violation, I know that, of WTO rules, to say we simply only want it to be from Canadian companies. So I would like to include the word, to the extent possible, it'll be from Canadian companies, while we're respecting all WTO rules. If these amendments are adopted, then I feel comfortable voting for the motion. If these are not adopted, then I would have to vote against it, because I don't think at that point the motion would be reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Mr. Kazmierczuk, did you want to add anything? After Mr. Kazmierczuk, I have Ms. Vignola and then Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first of all, I just wanted to begin by saying, how much I appreciate the work of Madame Vignola. I'm really delighted that she's back on the committee because she always brings forward excellent studies and excellent ideas for issues that are pertinent to be studied. on this front, on this particular motion, I'm struggling here because the original motion contains the word deplores the fact, which this which MP Housefather's amended motion removes. And the reason why that's important is because no fact has been established by this committee. There has not been a single moment of any testimony by witnesses to establish this as fact. We have not heard from officials to understand what percentage of PPE where they are derived from. And so we haven't, as a committee, we haven't had any testimony. We haven't had a single document in front of us to establish such as fact. And yet the original motion states that this is fact. I haven't seen any arguments. I haven't seen any evidence that states that this is a fact. And so I would support MP Housefather's amended motion as well, because it removes that particular statement, which I find problematic. And I would really implore, or I'd ask Madame Vigneault to consider giving us a little bit of time to actually look at some of the evidence, to have some of that brought before the House or before this committee, so that we can establish certain facts. And so I really would implore my colleague, Madame Vigneault, to consider giving us a little time to actually look at the evidence here before we send this out. The other part that I wanted to raise as well too, and this is something regarding the amendment as well too. We have in Windsor-Tecumseh companies that produce PPE. They don't manufacture all the components of that particular PPE. They assemble it, they put it together, they alter it. I'd hate to see this motion discriminate in any way against companies like ours in Windsor-Tecumseh, which again, assemble the PPE, put it together, but don't necessarily manufacture all of the components of it. And so again, I implore Madame Vigneault to give us time to properly discuss this, give us time to properly study, establish the facts, make sure that the motion that we put forward is surgical, is specific, and that it is also rooted in testimony, in evidence, in fact. And so I would again add that I would support MP Housefather's amendment, but I would certainly ask MP Vignola to consider giving us time to properly study this situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. And just to be clear, this is an amendment to the amended motion that we're discussing at this point in time. And then I have Ms. Vignola, then Mr. McCauley, then Mr. Johns, then Mr. Lobb. Ms. Vignola.
Very quickly. I'm wondering about whether or not it's possible to vote on an amendment that changes the amendment that the colleagues had already voted for. So changing that which they've already voted in favor of. But in terms of the WTO, here we're talking about national security. We're talking about public health. We're talking about masks, and with, all due respect to my colleague, Mr. Kazmierczuk, it says made in China on the box, so I don't know how many witnesses we would need to hear to prove that that's the case. I don't think that that's necessary to hear that testimony. We have businesses, and you mentioned it, in Quebec, in Ontario, across Canada, who produce this equipment, and we need to show an example for the Canadian economy. We are using masks, foreign masks, which are not made here at home. So we're not asking all of our contracts to be changed, but at the very least, the masks that we use here should be masks from Canada. That's what we're asking for. I would be very surprised to see a country say, well, listen, no, your masks, yes, they allow us to keep jobs in an uncertain period. They allow people to be better protected because the standards here are very strict and they're well known. But no. Instead, we're going to go to court to make sure that Chinese masks or another masks be used, masks that don't bring any economic benefit to your country. Maybe truckers who are transporting them are the only economic benefit, whereas masks that are made in Ontario, Alberta, Quebec, no matter where they're made, but which are made in Canada, they bring a direct economic benefit to our country. So that's something that we need to take into account in our decision. We want to help people here at home. We want to help our economy. We want to help get things going again. And if we set the example to the whole country, then that's a positive step. Today in Quebec, there are over 2,800 new cases. So we should be doing what we can to limit the incredible propagation of this virus. It's worse now than it's been in the past. We need to make sure that it doesn't get any higher, that the situation isn't getting any worse. So we should be using masks that are safe and whose safety is proven, whose standards are known and proven. That's what we're asking for. I don't think that we need to hear from witnesses or officials to tell us that it says on the boxes, made in China. So, in my humble opinion, no, we don't need to have 2 or 3 other meetings about this in January to delay things further. So on top of that, the amendment that I've read was made very quickly, and the ideas that are in it are, well, a bit repetitive, and I was criticized for identifying the 2 nations that make up Canada right now, the nation of Quebec and the nation of Canada. Well, I could also have added the First Nations because they're also part of Canada. So what I'm being criticized for is still present in the motion that has been proposed. So for all of these reasons, I cannot support the proposals made by my Liberal colleagues. Thank you.
Vignola, and just again, so that everyone's clear, we're discussing the amendment to the amended motion. We'll go to Mr. McCauley.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And I have to say, I can't agree more with my colleague from the bloc. This is starting to become preposterous. There's 17,000 public servants working for PSPC. To say that we can't get an inventory, especially after this scandal of the government throwing out all the supplies years ago of the National Emergency Stockpile, I'm pretty sure even this government kind of caught on that that was a problem and would make preparations to ensure they knew how much was in stock. So to say that it will take months of study to figure this out, I think it's just bogus. This government also gave a sole source contract to a Canadian company to produce 4.4 million masks a year for the government. These masks are in production and have been for many months, so there are Canadian masks available. Further, they gave a $23 million gift to a massive American company that makes their market capitalization is like $33 billion. So we give them a corporate gift to make 25 million masks a year in Brockville, Ontario. So we do have the Canadian masks here. And surely if the government has pre-purchased all these masks from China, we can certainly shift them to hospitals or other areas. And I will note the comment about the WTO. If my colleague had tuned into any of the previous OGGO meetings for the last several, since the start, you would have noticed that the government invoked the national security exemption to bypass any trade deals, and also made changes to legislation to again avoid having to comply with any of the trade deals under emergency purchases. So I just can't understand why this desire to protect foreign, and especially Chinese-made masks, when we have taxpayers-funded masks being made in Quebec and Ontario. It is deplorable that we are not using taxpayer-funded masks made by Canadian companies. And I want to give a quote from the previous PSPC minister. It's become evident when it comes to long-term solutions to our needs, domestic production is a reliable, important, and effective solution. Must continue to be at the forefront of our minds from a procurement perspective. This is our own minister saying this. I think my colleagues with the Liberals should get on board, support Canadians, stop this endless filibustering over a very reasonable requests from the Bloc that masks for Parliament and for government workers should be made in Canada. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Mr. Johns.
Okay. Well, first, I really appreciate Ms. Vignola for the spirit of her motion. It's really important, and for this committee especially, to be leading in this discussion. If we can't do it here, we're in deep trouble. I am worried about taking out deplorable, and I'll just give you, an example in my riding. We had a local distillery that stepped up to the plate, Wayward Distillery in Courtenay. They started making PPE. They started making hand sanitizer. They pivoted their distillery to making hand sanitizer during the beginning of the pandemic to support health workers, police, first responders, frontline service workers, and they made a lot of it. They donated $75,000 worth, and then they started getting contracts to develop it. They couldn't keep up with the demand, and they brought in ethanol and product from overseas to meet the weeks ahead to be able to supply it. And then, Canada actually flooded the market with Chinese sanitizer. And now they're sitting on all this ethanol because they brought it in so cheap they couldn't sell it. They're sitting on this stuff. And this is a business that's hanging on by a thread. They put everything into it to help Canada, to help Canadian companies, to help frontline service workers, to help Canadians out. And I think that's deplorable. I actually think that's deplorable, that this business is sitting on that inventory completely stressed out. And I've got huge concerns around that. So I have no problem leaving deplorable in there because Canada still hasn't procured from this company and many others that stepped up. This is a former veteran, actually, that owns this company. And he's being let down by his own country. So I'm just sharing that story because I think that's deplorable. And the other part of this motion that I do have concerns about, and this is why we don't, as New Democrats, we like motions to come ahead of time so we have time to look at them and bring back some thoughtful, positive contributions. But it doesn't prohibit anyone from a Canadian company from procuring overseas the way this motion's written. There's a lot of Canadian companies that are bringing in foreign PPE. And this motion doesn't cite that this has to be Canadian made in terms of what product we're asking the government to replace the foreign product with. So I think that the motion should be amended after Quebec and made in Canada should be in there. So I'm hoping that the mover of this motion would be open to that amendment. But I do agree that, I would love to have all the PPE replaced by January 31st as well. I don't know how practical that is, but I think what is practical is at least having a timeline where the government can report back to this committee by January 31st of a commitment and implementation of Canadian PPE, because clearly this needs to be moved on quickly. And I think that this committee and Canadians need confidence that we're going to have Canadian-made PPE in circulation and replacing the foreign PPE. So those are our contributions right now. But I would move that, I would ask the mover of this motion if he'd be open to an amendment after Quebec and made in Canada. And that's my explanation in going against him removing deplorable.
Thank you, Mr. John. So I take it you are moving a sub-amendment to the amendment. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Housefather, are you acceptable to that sub-amendment?
I'm fine with it. I think the sub amendment, no, not a problem. I think that the issues. I just wanted to, Mr. Chair, if I can, to go to deal with both the amendment and the sub amendment, if I may, to go through the issues that I see, which essentially, again, I'm disturbed at the fact that we didn't see this before, because again, I would have liked to have had time to consider it, understand all of the issues. Maybe Mr. McCauley is right when he says the WTO part is not necessary. At first blush, it seems to me that I don't want to pass something without having proper study and knowledge of whether or not I'm in violation of WTO rules or not. And that's why I proposed to include it, because I didn't know enough right now. I mean, if we had it for a few days, that would be one thing. We're thrown at it, in the context of a meeting where we have no time to go and check anything. The word deplorable, I just want to explain my logic. Of course, I would like everything as much as possible to come from Canadian companies. And of course, we on the Hill, more than anyone in our federal departments, should be using Canadian produced goods as much as we possibly can. But to say that something's deplorable, I don't know, for example, and none of us do, that those masks were not purchased in some big stockpile in March of 2020 when nothing else was available. None of us knows what the stockpile is. None of us knows when they were actually purchased. And to say deplorable, the people who worked on getting those contracts and sourcing them at the beginning, I don't feel that it's right for the committee to say that their work was deplorable. We just don't know. That's why I propose to attenuate the wording. And with respect to January the 31st, I think it's totally reasonable what Mr. John said. If the motion said, look, we see an issue, we're very concerned or upset that the masks used in federal departments and on Parliament Hill are not being sourced from Canadian companies. And we ask that the government investigate this and come back to the committee by January the 31st with a response that indicates how quickly all of these things can be sourced from Canadian companies. I would be fine with that. But this motion basically calls on everything to be replaced by January 31st. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if we'd be breaching contracts. And so, again, the problem is something being thrown at the very last minute at us with no ability to research it. And so while I have no problem with Mr. John's sub-amendment, and I would include it as part of what I'm proposing, I have no problem with that. I just don't think that, again, the motion as it is currently worded without any of my amendments is plausible. So I would at least ask the committee that we change the date or agree to change this, that a government response be provided by January the 31st. And if the committee is willing to do that, then I'll come back with a different amendment. Because again, I don't think it's reasonable with no knowledge of what the contracts are, no knowledge of what the situation is, what the stockpile is, what contracts could be put in place, that we're putting a date of January the 31st for this to happen. And that's why, and I hope that explains why I put forward that amendment. And again, I'm happy to include Mr. John's words as part of whatever amendment I'm proposing.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. And so just so we're clear, we're discussing Mr. Johns' sub-amendment, and Mr. Johns' sub-amendment is to, and just correct me if I'm wrong, it's not to make any changes to leaving deplorable in. It's about adding to the sub-amendment Canadian made. Is that correct, Mr. Johns? So just a way of clarification.
Yeah, after Quebec and Canadian made.
Okay, thank you. So we're discussing the sub-amendment. As discussed, is the committee in favor? Do we have consensus on this sub-amendment?
Mr. Paul Huss would like to intervene, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Paul Huss.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's getting complicated because we're in a sub-amendment to an amendment now. I agree with what Mr. Johns proposes, but I don't agree with the amendment as it stands by Mr. Housefather. So we would vote against the amendment by Mr. Housefather. We would go back to the initial motion as amended, which is reasonable. Just to add to the debate, you must understand that at this time, these masks that we're getting here, there's a public health issue with them. They should be withdrawn, analyzed, and reconsidered for later. And from a symbolic point of view, we should have Made in Canada masks in Parliament and its related buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul Hoos. And sorry, I missed Mr. Lobb. I apologize.
Thanks, Mr. Kitchen, Mr. Chair. I agree with my colleague, Mr. Paul Hoos. The only thing I'd like to Mr. Housefather's points, and I mean, I thought this would take two to 3 minutes to pass Madame Vignola's motion here, and it's going to be 24 hours before it's approved. But to think about Mr. Housefather's comments on the WTO, I mean, Justin Trudeau, how many times has he said Made in Canada solution? I got Doug Ford, Made in Ontario solution. I'm sure Mr. Legault had Made in Quebec solution. Navdeep Bains, Made in Canada supply essential. Minister Anand, who was at that time Public Service and Procurement, right here in Ontario, Made in Canada, enhanced Canadian supply. I mean, there's 50,000 examples here, and I'm sure they're all well in compliance with what they said. So the other thing that to me almost makes me think we should have a study on this now is that if procurement or whoever would be responsible for these inventories don't know how many there are, that would raise a serious alarm bell to me, because it would seem to me your inventory levels would trigger a purchase. And if you don't know your inventories are and you just keep pumping these POs out, how many gazillion masks are out there and we just keep buying them? So if we're in this disarray in year 6 of the Liberal government, I didn't even come here to be political today. I just came here to pass their motion. And now I'm thinking we need to have a 10-part series on how many masks and PPEs in the country. Now I'm really concerned. So we'll worry about the motion right now. But this is blowing my mind here to hear that Mr. Housefather thinks that perhaps nobody knows how many masks there are in this country. So I'll cede my time. I think I made my point. I see Mr. Housefather's not happy with my comments. That's fine. But these are all my points. Maybe I took them out of context, but I think that's pretty much what he said. And there's no issue with made in Canada. There's no issue with Made in Quebec, Made in Ontario, where they're made. I mean, the government gave them grants. I'd say let's just get on with it and see if we can't find another thing to look at or conclude the meeting here today.
Thank you, Mr. Lobb. And just so we're clear, we're talking about the sub-amendment of Mr. Johns. Mr. Housefather.
Mr. Chair, I feel I need to respond to that quite absurd intervention. What I said was that the members of the committee are not aware of what the stock is. I didn't say that the public servants who are responsible for it are not aware. I said that we are sitting here having received a motion 10 minutes before we started debate on it, and none of us have researched any of these questions as to what the contracts currently in place are, when the stock that is currently being used on the Hill, and this is also speaking about other government departments, was actually purchased. We don't know if it was a one-time buy in March or April of last year, or whether there's been ongoing purchase orders, and that there's another purchase order that could easily be changed to a Canadian company, or we have stock in place that will not run out by January the 31st and may only run out in March. I don't know those answers. I might know them if I had a day to go study this, but I never saw this motion before. And so I am not the person that would be aware of that. There would be many people that would be aware of that, and the committee, if we really wanted to do our proper due diligence, would ask. And we didn't. And we're just now voting on things where we don't actually have a basis for understanding what the contract is in place and when the stock that is currently there will run out. And again, if this had been a motion to say we would like an answer because we're very concerned about the situation as to when we can replace these masks with Canadian-made masks, I have no problem with it. But I tend to be not a very partisan person, and I don't really think that this is a great way to start. But I don't, I never said what I was alleged to have said. And again, I continue to support Mr. John's sub-amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. And Mr. Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to echo what my colleague, Mr. Hausfather said. I don't think our intent was to say that PSPC does not know the level of inventory. It's just we're not furnished with that information in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johari. All right. Is there any more discussion? And I'm not seeing any hands up.
Mr. Kitchen, just before we vote on my sub-amendment, because I believe that the amendment put forward by Mr. Hausfather is not going to pass. So I'm going to withdraw my sub-amendment and let us vote on his motion, and then I will come back to the committee.
Do we have? I assume I think we need to have basically unanimous consent to have the withdrawal.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to the standing orders to withdraw a motion, it requires unanimous consent of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have unanimous consent to withdraw the sub-amendment? I see that. Okay, so the sub-amendment is withdrawn. We are now discussing the amendment to the amended motion. Mr. Hausfather's amendment to the amended motion. Mr. Kazmierczuk, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I would ask that we adopt MP Hausfather's amendment, remove the language about the deplorable. And again, I emphasize the fact we don't have the facts in front of us. And really, this is an inauspicious start to this committee, which when I was reading out the routine motions, it talked about the spirit of collaboration. We haven't even discussed the basis of facts. We don't have those facts in front of us. We did not have a single testimony. We do not have a single document that tells us anything about the number of PPE that were procured, how it was distributed, what is the plan moving forward? Nothing. This is not how a committee is supposed to work. We're supposed to work from fundamental facts, establish those facts, and then communicate it. And I'll be honest with you, I feel broadsided by this motion in general. And again, I want to debate it. I think it's an absolutely critical issue to debate. But we need to have the time to debate it and the proper facts before we make a statement. As of July, there were 2.7 billion pieces of PPE that were procured by PSPC. 2.7 billion pieces of PPE that were procured. And they were procured because we needed PPE en masse and we needed them quickly to protect the health and safety of Canadians, protect the health and safety of our frontline workers. There were 190 million N95 masks that were procured, 77 million non-medical masks that were procured by this government, 11 million cloth masks that were procured by this government, 450 million surgical masks procured by this government to protect Canadians, those in hospitals, those in homes, and those on the Hill. And to MP Hausfather's point, we should have a discussion about Canadian-made PPE, promoting Canadian PPE. Absolutely. But we need to have some facts here as to how that PPE is procured, how that PPE is distributed. Is it purchased in bulk? What was the rationale? Are these masks that were purchased 6 months ago when there was a dearth of PPE, or 10 months ago when there was a dearth of PPE and a fierce competition for PPE across the world?
Mr. Chair, I apologize for intervening. Mr. Lobb has raised a point of order.
I have a point of order for my colleague, and the point of order is he is now presenting how many he's ordered, and I never dispute the order. I'm saying how many's in inventory now to continue on with these orders. So he's presenting some facts and not all the facts. So I understand they have ordered a lot of masks and PPE, and I think we all agree that's great. We're just, now I think we're in the point that is irrelevant unless he knows how many's in inventory and what is triggering future purchases, which I don't think either of us know.
Well, Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Mr. Lobb. Thank you, Mr. Lobb. This is a matter of debate. Mr. Kazmierczuk, you do have the floor on the issue of vote or discussion on the amendment to the amended motion. And let's try and stay close to that such that we focus on the issues, please.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. And so what I'll say is that the amendment by my colleague, MP Housefather, what it does is it encapsulates the spirit of Madame Vignola's motion. And I think it's the spirit of the motion that I think is supported by everybody around this table, which is that ideally we would want to see made in Canada PPE procured. But at the same time, what it does is it seeks, what it doesn't do is it doesn't establish a fact or doesn't use the language of fact when no facts have been brought forward, no facts have been established at all. What are we working from as a committee? And so I would implore committee members to adopt MP Housefather's amendment because it captures the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish here, which we want to promote Canadian-made PPEs and support Canadian-made companies. But it doesn't state that we established as fact something that has not been established as fact because we haven't had the opportunity to actually have that discussion here. And so that's what I would bring forward. Is again, that's why I would support the amendment put forward by MP Housefather.
Thank you, Mr. Kazmierczuk. Mr. Housefather, I see your hand is up.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess my point is I'm trying to listen. I always try to see if there's consensus. I'm trying to listen to the members of the committee, and I think that the issues we've raised are real and legitimate. Nobody knows what the stock is right now. At the very least, we need to amend the date January 31st, 2022. I mean, at the very least, because nobody knows when it would be possible to accomplish this, and we need to use the words as soon as reasonably possible. Maybe I made an error in trying to put together multiple components into one amendment. And Mr. Chairman, if there's unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment, I'd be prepared to move simply the timeline as an amendment. And then we could take things one by one. I don't think, again, the word deplorable is right. But I can make that a separate issue. For me, if we want to not prolong this meeting forever, I would be okay with withdrawing the three-part amendment that I put forward and simply proposing to amend things to say that we remove the date of January 31st, 2022 and say as soon as reasonably possible. And so I would need unanimous consent to withdraw and then make that simple, smaller amendment. So if my colleagues want to do that and we want to try to foster a spirit of collegiality, I will be prepared to do that.
Okay. Boy, this is, which one are we looking at? So, okay, we're looking right now at Mr. Housefather asking for unanimous consent to withdraw his amendment to the amended motion. Do we have unanimous consent for that to happen? And recognizing the fact that we do have a time limit today, and we want to, I mean, we still haven't even got through this motion, so we want to at least give us some action so that we can move forward. But right now we're asking, is there unanimous consent to withdraw Mr. Housefather's amendment? Yes, I see no hands saying no. Okay, withdrawn. Mr. Housefather, I'm going to give you a very quick second to propose what you're suggesting.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. So basically, the amendment that I would propose is to remove the date January 31st, 2022, and instead to say as soon as reasonably possible.
Okay, thank you for that. So we now have an amendment to the amended motion, which is basically changing January 31st, 2022 to as soon as reasonably possible. Discussion on that amendment. I see Ms. Vignola. Oh, sorry. I do see a hand. I think that's Mr. Paul Hughes' hand first, and then Ms. Vignola.
No, Mr. Chair, I believe it was Mr. Johns and then Madame Vignola.
Okay, I got to have my eyes checked too. Mr. Johns.
Thank you. You know, before I move anything, is it possible for the clerk to read the motion where we're at now? Because I'm getting lost a little bit here. Thanks.
One moment, please, Mr. Chair. I will pull up the motion.
Sure.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm just pulling up the amendment that was sent. Yes. Okay. So there was one amendment already adopted for the motion, so I will read what I understand to be the motion as amended at this point. And it is that in the light of the Prime Minister's call to the country's businesses to produce personal protective equipment, PPE, and that since then, several Quebec and Canadian businesses have responded, the committee deplores the fact that the masks distributed on Parliament Hill and in the various federal departments and agencies come from abroad and not from local businesses. That the administration of the House and the federal government take steps to ensure that as of January 31st, 2022, the masks distributed on Parliament Hill and in the various federal departments and agencies come from Canadian companies that produce this type of personal protective equipment. And that the chair of the committee write to the Speaker of the House to inform him of the situation and ask that measures be taken to resolve the situation before the date specified in the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Johns, that is the amended motion, and that we have. And Mr. Housefather has proposed that the January 31st, 2022 be changed to as soon as possible, correct, just in my slang. Mr. Johns?
I'd like to move an amendment then on the original motion that after mass, I'd like to add and hand sanitizer before distributed. And then after the federal government report back to the committee steps to ensure that by January 31st, 2022, the federal government and the House provide a timeline that masks and sanitizer distributed that can be distributed on Parliament Hill and in the various federal departments and agencies come from Canadian companies. We've already got that. And then and made in Canada that produce this type of personal protective equipment.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Clerk.
I believe Mr. Housefather had moved an amendment to replace the date January 31st, 2022 with, I believe, as soon as reasonably possible. That is the amendment on the floor. I'm not sure if Mr. Johns is moving. Is this another amendment that he wishes to consider after Mr. Housefather's amendment is dealt with? I'm just seeking clarity.
I mean, my assumption would be he's going to have to make that, to make an amendment to the amendment, which is what we're discussing, which is Mr. Housefather's as soon as reasonably possible.
Mr. Chair, can we suspend so that I can speak with you privately, please? Thank you.
Certainly. We'll suspend for 5 minutes. A amendment by Mr. Housefather, which is a very small amendment, and your proposal is actually outside the context of Mr. Housefather's amendment.
Okay, I'll withdraw
So
then. I'll withdraw for now, Mr. Kitchen.
If you would just hold that off, you
Yeah.
may be able to bring that up at a different point in time, but this wouldn't be the time for that. Thank you. I do believe Ms. Vignola. So just so that everyone, just clarifying that we are talking about the change by Mr. Housefather, which is to the date, changing January 31st, 2022 to as soon as reasonably possible. Of the amended motion.
Ça manque singulièrement
I have to say that this really lacks specifics. Earlier, I was told that there were no specifics when it's plainly obvious that the masks are not made in Canada. I was told that there was no substance to the motion, which is actually so simple. We just want to ensure that we favor our workers, our companies, and set an example on the Hill. I never, ever would have believed that I would see so much pushback or so much filibustering just to protect our workers and our businesses. And so when I hear things like as soon as possible, what's as soon as possible? Is it February 1st, 2022? Is it in 2023? In 2645? So when's as soon as possible? It's not specific. These are our workers and our health as well. Because our made in Canada and Quebec masks uphold our standards, and they're high standards. That's what this is all about. It's just about protecting our people. So I just can't see why there's so much pushback. Why people are trying to stop this motion from moving ahead when this is our people we're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vignola. I see Mr. Johari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to reassure Ms. Vianola that nobody's trying to push back, and we are not trying to do filibustering. What we are trying to do, we are trying to make sure that we work in a very collaborative way in ensuring that the study or a motion that's going to get the unanimous support of this committee is really well thought through. That's all we are asking.
Mr. Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Johari. Unfortunately, our phone lines have dropped. And so we have to reset those. And so we're going to have to suspend for just briefly. I apologize for interrupting you there, Mr. Johari. But the phone lines are down. So,
Mr. Chair.
We will just suspend for a couple of minutes while we try and get the phone lines back up.
Mr. Chair, we are already past 1 o'clock, which is the regular time of this committee. But that's fine.
Okay. Hopefully we will be able to get this done as quickly as possible, and recognizing that, but if not, I say we can continue without the phone lines if it's up to the committee if they'd like to do that. Is the committee okay with us continuing without the phone lines? Because we don't know how long it would take to bring them back. I'm seeing no nods against, so let us continue. Sorry, Mr. Johari, go ahead.
Yeah. So as I was saying, we appreciate the motion. We appreciate the intent of the motion, and we totally support all our Canadian manufacturer in making sure that they are considered first and foremost. The fact that we are having this much conversation about this motion in itself is evidence that we really need to take a step back and really look at the content of the motion and what we need to do to ensure that once passed through this committee, it's got teeth and it can benefit us. So may I actually suggest that we consider this as a notice of the motion, and in the spirit of collaboration, we will go back and work with all members to ensure that we have a motion that's agreeable by all, that we could table on the first meeting that we are coming back, and it will have unanimous support of all the team members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just hold on for a second, Mr. Johari, while I just figure out what you're proposing is to withdraw the motions. Then is my understanding.
Yeah, I'm proposing that let's withdraw the motion, consider it as a notice of motion, along with the other motion that all the team members, we are in a position to be able to table a lot of notice of motions. And in the spirit that we don't want to reject this motion, we want to make sure that it's considered as a notice of the motion. It goes to the subcommittee procedures, studied, modified, so we can come back to support it in January.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I can support that, given if the priority is that this is the first motion that we bring back to this committee and we discuss. Does that sound reasonable?
Okay.
I support that.
I'll wait for Ms. Vignola to give her feedback on that suggestion.
In order for us to do that, we would need to have.
Because the motion is fabulous. It's critical, and we need to show leadership here at this committee.
In order for us to do that, we would need unanimous consent to withdraw this motion at this time, under the understanding that we would bring this back as, and it would have to be, to correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Clerk, but it would not be on the amended motion, but it would be on the initial motion, correct?
Mr. Chair, it may be worth your while to clarify what the committee is actually. Is the committee wishing to withdraw both motions, which is to say the motion proposed by Mme. Vignola as amended and the amendment proposed by Mr. Housefather, or just the amendment proposed by Mr. Housefather?
Okay, so we just want clarification as to, is it the motion as amended, or is Mr. Housefather's motion, which Mr. Housefather's motion was actually withdrawn on consent?
If I may, Mr. Chair, there was an amendment by Mr. Housefather which was withdrawn.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Subsequent to that, he moved another. If the committee
Yes.
is not interested in dealing with the issue today, it could decide to withdraw both the motions. Alternatively, the committee could also decide to adjourn the debate on it and pick the debate up, which would include Mr. Housefather's current amendment and the motion Mme. Vignola has moved, which has already been amended. It's entirely at the committee. To withdraw the motion requires to withdraw either of the motions requires unanimous consent, and any member can propose to adjourn the debate if they so choose, or to adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Housefather, I see your hand is up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Just to again explain, I think the intention of what Mr. Johari was suggesting is that everything be, and Mr. Johns, I believe, was that the core motion, the base motion, as well as any amendments to it, be tabled to our first meeting back in January, giving people the opportunity to discuss it in the interim and try to find a consensus so that we could adopt it, given that we right now, again, I just want to clarify, Mr. Chair, that this motion doesn't just deal with the parliamentary precinct, it deals with all federal departments across the country, and we have no idea what, again, inventory is related to masks and hand sanitizer. As again, I accept Mr. John's addition if he proposes it, but so I think the right motion, Mr. Chair, is that I move to table discussion on the motion as well as any amendments to the first meeting of the committee back in January. I think that's the right motion to put forward based on the clerk's advice.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Ms. Vignola, your hand was up, and just correct again, my understanding, Ms. Housefather, was that this was just on the parliamentary precinct, but I may be misinterpreting that as well. So Ms. Vignola, if she would clarify that as well.
So for the clarification, the French motion says masks on Parliament Hill and in the different departments and federal agencies. And about my motion, given what we've seen so far, what I would suggest is that I would suspend it so that we can discuss at the first meeting when we're back, and that it be a priority.
Nous pourrons discuter.
That it'd be a priority, and then we would be able to discuss it in a better way before that next meeting and during that next meeting. This is a very important subject for public health, for our businesses, and for our workers. So it's ridiculous that we have masks from elsewhere when we could get them from here in Canada.
Thank you. So just, is there agreement to adjourn the debate?
Yes.
And I'm seeing yes, nothing against. Okay, therefore, with that said, the debate is adjourned, and we will bring this up to at our next meeting in January. It'll be the first on the agenda. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you all.
Thanks, Robert.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holiday to everyone.